Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're heading to India to explore the rise of the Mughal Empire. It's a story full of ambition, battles, and cultural fusion. And to help us unpack it all, we have an amazing expert with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to delve into this period, especially focusing on Babur, the founder of this incredible dynasty.
Babur, huh? I've
Oh.
got to admit, I don't know that much about him. Wasn't he originally from somewhere outside India?
Yeah, he was a Timurid prince, so his roots were in Central Asia, not the Indian subcontinent. What's fascinating is she steps onto the scene at a time when India was, well, kind of a mess. You had the Delhi Sultanate, which had been powerful for centuries, but it was crumbling by the early 1500s. And about 15 years before Babur was even born, Timur, another Central Asian warlord, had led this devastating raid on India that really destabilized the whole region. So picture this: a power vacuum, various kingdoms vying for control, and in walks Babur, ambitious and ready to seize the opportunity.
Okay, so fragmented India, ripe for the taking. But why Babur? Why was he the one to grab power and create an empire that would last for centuries?
Well, one key advantage he had was military. He brought with him gunpowder and cannons, which were relatively new to many Indian armies at the time.
Ah, so a technological edge. That makes sense.
Exactly. It gave him a serious leg up in battle. But he wasn't just relying on firepower. Babur was also a brilliant strategist and a charismatic leader who could really rally his troops.
So he had the tools, A&D, the know-how. But India wasn't just some empty land waiting to be conquered, right?
Right. This was not a simple invasion. India back then was incredibly diverse. You had all these different kingdoms, each with their own rulers, religions, and cultural traditions. So Babur had to navigate this incredibly complex landscape, building alliances, crushing resistance when he had to, and constantly adapting his strategies to survive.
Wow, sounds like a political and military tightrope walk.
Oh.
I'm guessing there were some key battles that really cemented Babur's place in Indian history. The kind of clashes that made everyone sit up and say, whoa, this guy means business.
Oh, absolutely. And one that really stands out is the First Battle of Panipat in 1526. This was Babur against the Lodi dynasty, who were the rulers of Delhi at that time. It was a brutal fight, a real clash of titans.
I bet those cannons came in handy, huh?
You bet they did. Babur's strategic use of cannons, along with his disciplined troops, led him to victory.
I've heard that name, Panipat, even centuries later. It sounds like a battle that legends are made of.
It definitely was a turning point, often seen as the birth of the Mughal Empire, the moment Babur truly announced his arrival on the Indian stage.
A decisive victory for sure. But conquering is only half the battle, right? The real challenge is holding on to what you've won and actually building a stable empire.
You're absolutely right. Babur couldn't just sit back and relax after Panipat. He faced all sorts of challenges. Uprisings, rebellions, especially from groups like the Rajputs and Afghans, who weren't too keen on having this new ruler.
Yeah, they probably weren't going to give up their own power bases without a fight.
Exactly. It wasn't just about military dominance, but also understanding the local politics, building relationships, and figuring out a way to rule over this incredibly diverse region.
So, a constant balancing act. Did Babur actually manage to establish a stable empire during his lifetime?
Well, those early years were definitely rocky. It was a period of constant rebellions, power struggles, just a desperate scramble to consolidate his control over this huge territory. And keep in mind, he's an outsider, a Timurid prince trying to establish himself in a land far from home.
That must have made it even harder.
It definitely did. He had to prove himself not just as a conqueror, but as a legitimate ruler.
So not just about brute force, but earning respect and trust, too.
Absolutely. And one decision that reflects this is his choice of Agra as his capital.
Agra, right. The city that would become so iconic for the Mughals.
Exactly. It was strategically located in northern India, and it became the center of Babur's new empire. But it was more than just practical, it was symbolic. Choosing Agra was a way of saying, hey, I'm here to stay, I'm building something lasting.
A statement of intent.
Exactly. And it's amazing to think how that one choice shaped the destiny of the Mughal Empire for generations to come.
So he's a warrior king, a shrewd strategist, and now we're seeing the empire builder emerge. But building an empire takes more than just conquering and picking a capital city. What did Babur do to lay the groundwork for a system of government? Something that could actually run this vast empire.
That's where things get really interesting, because Babur wasn't just a military man. He understood that true power lay in establishing an effective administration.
Ah, so the nuts and bolts of government, taxes, laws, all that stuff.
Exactly. He started building a Mughal bureaucracy, taking inspiration from existing systems, but adding his own innovations.
So a mix of old and new.
Yeah, he was pragmatic. He didn't just try to force a foreign model onto India. Instead, he drew on what was already there, particularly from the Lotus, the dynasty he had defeated, and adapted it to his needs.
It's smart, really. Why reinvent the wheel if you could just fine-tune it?
Exactly. It shows his understanding that building a successful empire requires more than just military might.
So we've seen the conquerors, the strategist, the administrator. But what about the man himself? What kind of legacy did Babur leave behind?
Well, what's remarkable about him is that he was more than just a warrior or an emperor. He was a man of culture, a lover of gardens, architecture, poetry. His legacy touches the very fabric of Indian culture.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, for one thing, he left behind a detailed and personal account of his life in his memoirs, the Baburnama.
Wait, memoirs? So we have a first-hand account of his thoughts, his struggles.
Yeah, that's incredible. It is. The Baburnama gives us this amazing window into his personality, his motivations, and the challenges he faced. It's not just some dry historical record, but a real personal story, filled with descriptions, reflections, even moments of humor.
Wow, so we get to see the human side of this emperor.
Exactly. You get a sense of the man behind the legend.
Those memoirs sound like a must-read. What kind of insights can we find in them? What do they tell us about Babur that we wouldn't know otherwise?
Welcome back to our deep dive into Babur and the Mughals. Before we move on, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier, Babur's adaptability.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating how he blended his Central Asian background with the realities of ruling in India. It wasn't just about military power, but understanding the culture, the politics, and figuring out how to fit into this complex world.
Exactly. And one of the sources we have actually highlights this really well. It talks about Babur's land grants to Brahmins.
Brahmins, those are the Hindu priests, right? I thought the Mughals were Muslims.
That's what makes it so interesting. It shows a really nuanced understanding of power in 16th century India. Babur realized he couldn't just rule by force. He needed to build alliances to get key groups on his side. And the Brahmins, as these respected religious figures, they held a lot of sway within Hindu society.
Ah, so there's a strategic angle to these land grants. Not just about religious piety, but smart politics too.
Exactly. These grants, called agraharas, they actually had a long history in India. They were basically tax-free estates given to Brahmins for their religious services and scholarship. By continuing this practice, Babur was signaling respect for Hindu traditions and gaining the loyalty of a powerful group.
So he's legitimizing his rule, showing that he's not just some foreign conqueror trying to impose his will.
Exactly. He's demonstrating that he understands and respects the existing social and religious order.
That's really clever. It's like he's playing this multi-level game, using land grants as a tool to consolidate his power.
Exactly. And it had a ripple effect, too, because the Brahmins, as recipients of this royal favor, they played a key role in preserving and transmitting Hindu culture. So, in a way, Babur's patronage actually helped ensure the continuity of Hindu traditions within this emerging Mughal empire.
So a win-win. Babur gets political support, and the Brahmins get to keep influencing the cultural landscape. It's a great example of how a savvy ruler can navigate these religious and cultural complexities.
Absolutely. And it challenges the simple idea of a stark divide between Muslim rulers and Hindu subjects. The reality, as always, is way more nuanced.
For sure. This adds a whole new layer to our understanding of Babur and the early Mughals.
It does. It shows that building an empire wasn't just about winning battles, it was also about winning hearts and minds.
And speaking of winning hearts and minds, we can't forget about Babur's personal charm. His memoirs, they really show his appreciation for the beauty and diversity of India.
Yeah, his memoirs are full of vivid descriptions of the landscape, the customs, the people. He clearly wasn't just passing through. He took the time to really observe and appreciate Indian culture.
Those memoirs, I'm still fascinated by them.
Yeah.
You mentioned they reveal a different side of Babur, the poet, the gardener, the nature lover.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, there's this passage where he describes creating a garden in Agra, drawing inspiration from both Persian and Indian traditions. He goes into detail about the layout, the trees, the flowers, the water channels. You can sense the joy he found in creating this peaceful, beautiful space.
It's amazing to think that this love for gardens would become such a hallmark of Mughal culture. like with the Taj Mahal and all those stunning Mughal gardens we still admire today.
It's like we're seeing the roots of that tradition right here in Babur's writings.
It's true. And it's not just gardens, right? He was into Indian music, poetry, even the food.
Oh yeah, he talks about attending musical performances, enjoying Indian dishes, even learning some Hindi phrases. He really immersed himself in the culture.
It's like we're getting to know him as a person, not just some emperor from history books.
Exactly. His memoirs make him relatable, someone navigating a new and exciting world.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
But sadly, his reign was cut short, wasn't it? He died in 1530, just a few years after establishing the empire.
Yeah, it was only 4 years.
Did that make it harder for his successors to hold on to power?
While the empire was still very new, very fragile, Babur's death definitely threw things into turmoil. His son, Humayun, inherited the throne, but he faced a ton of challenges.
So the empire was almost lost right after it began.
It was a very precarious time. Humayun, while a capable leader, didn't have quite the same charisma or political skill as his father. He faced rebellions, invasions, even a period of exile.
Wow, sounds like a real test of the empire's strength.
It was, but ultimately the Mughals did manage to survive and thrive.
So what turned things around? How did the empire manage to pull through?
Well, that's a whole other deep dive. But in short, it was a combination of factors: strategic alliances, military innovations, and a gradual process of cultural integration. That early Mughal period, from Babur's conquests to Humayun's struggles, it's a fascinating story of ambition, resilience, and how power, culture, and just plain luck all intertwined.
Sounds like it. What stands out to you about this period?
It's the sheer energy of it all. It's a time of empires rising and falling, new ideas emerging, the whole landscape of India changing. And in the midst of it all, you have figures like Babur, driven by ambition, facing all these challenges, and their choices having these huge, often unpredictable consequences.
It really shows how history is shaped by individual actions, right?
Exactly. And that's what makes studying it so fascinating. It's not just about memorizing facts, but understanding the complexities of human motivation and how events unfold.
Absolutely. And even though Babur's reign was short, he clearly had a massive impact on India.
He did. He laid the foundation for a dynasty that would become one of the most powerful the world has ever seen.
His story is really inspiring, a reminder that one person can make a huge difference.
It is. And it's important to remember he wasn't just a conqueror. He was a man of culture, and his love for things like gardens and architecture, those had a lasting impact too.
It's true. He wasn't just about power and battles, but about beauty and ideas as well.
Exactly. And that's a perfect segue to our next discussion, where we'll delve even deeper into Babur's cultural legacy.
I'm excited to hear more. But for now, we'll wrap up this part of our deep dive into Babur and the Mughals. Welcome back to our Mughal Empire deep dive. It's incredible how much Babur accomplished in just 4 years, setting the stage for a dynasty that would last for centuries.
You know, what's fascinating to me is how his influence went beyond just politics and war. Babur's love for gardens, art, architecture, it all had a huge impact on Mughal culture as a whole.
Yeah, it's like he created a cultural blueprint that inspired later Mughal emperors like Akbar and Shah Jahan.
Exactly. They took those artistic traditions and really ran with them. One of our sources talks about how Babur introduced the charlagh garden concept to India, a style with roots in Persia.
Charbagh. Okay, I'm picturing something elegant, symmetrical, maybe with water features.
You're right on the money. Imagine a walled garden divided into 4 quadrants by pathways or water channels, often with a pavilion or fountain in the center.
Sounds beautiful.
It was. And it had symbolic meaning, too. In Islamic cosmology, this design represented paradise.
So it's not just about aesthetics, but a deeper cultural and spiritual understanding.
Exactly. And this charbagh style became super important in Mughal architecture. Babur's own gardens, like the Rambagh in Agra, were kind of like prototypes for the grand Mughal gardens that came later.
It's so cool to see how those ideas evolved over time. But beyond gardens, what other influences did Babur have on Mughal art and architecture?
Well, he also brought with him Timurid architectural styles, which blended Persian and Islamic elements. The Delhi Sultanate had its own architectural traditions, of course, but Babur introduced new ideas, things like double domes and intricate tile work.
So it was a fusion of styles, creating something uniquely Mughal.
Exactly. And that cultural blend is what makes the Mughal period so fascinating. It wasn't just about one culture dominating another, but a dynamic exchange of ideas and traditions.
It really enriched the artistic landscape of India.
Absolutely. And that dynamism is reflected not just in buildings and gardens, but in literature, music, even food. Babur's court was this amazing hub of creativity, drawing in artists from all over the empire.
Now, we've talked a lot about Babur's accomplishments, but what about the challenges he faced? Ruling such a vast and diverse empire couldn't have been easy.
You're right, one of the biggest challenges was that very diversity. Imagine trying to rule over a territory with so many different languages, religions, and cultures.
It must have been incredibly complex. How did Babur handle that?
Well, as we saw with those land grants to Brahmins, he was very pragmatic. He knew he had to balance his own background with the existing traditions and power structures in India. It wasn't about erasing those differences, but finding ways to make them work within the Mughal system.
So, more about finding unity amidst that diversity.
Exactly. And that's a challenge that continued for later Mughal rulers.
It's a theme that keeps coming up. Cultural synthesis. Creating something new and vibrant from all those different influences.
Absolutely. And it's a key takeaway from our look at Babur and the early Mughal period. It's a story of conquest and ambition, but also of cultural exchange and the power of ideas.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. What's the one thing you hope listeners will take away from Babur's story?
For me, it's remembering that Babur was more than just a conqueror. He was a visionary leader who really set the stage for one of history's most influential empires. His story is a testament to human ambition, cultural sensitivity, and the impact one person can have on the world.
Beautifully said. It reminds us that history isn't just about dates and battles, but about the people who lived, made choices, and left their mark on the world. Babur's legacy inspires us, centuries later, to believe that even amidst huge challenges, we can make a real difference. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Babur and the rise of the Mughal Empire. Keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on our next adventure.